Hello and welcome back to the Veg Garden. This week I'll be running a series in which I talk to you every day about various different topics within gardening. So the schedule for the week is between Monday and Friday I'll be teaching a different topic every day. It's going to be very brief because each video is going to be about 10 minutes long, well between 10 and 15 minutes long perhaps. And then Saturday we're going to have a day off, and the idea behind that is that if you have any comments and questions within the week, then between Monday and Friday you can ask the questions on those videos, and then on Saturday, by midday Saturday, British time, I will start filming then in the afternoon of Saturday all the Q&As ready to put up on Sunday. So if the question isn't in by midday Saturday, then it won't be included in the video. So if you want to see a Sunday video get done, then please put some questions in. No questions too silly, just whatever, and anything goes really. So to start off today, we'll be talking about self-sufficiency, and there's 5 aspects that I've chosen within self-sufficiency to talk about today. The first being succession sowing. So instead of the traditional way of growing, which is you grow one crop in a certain place, once that crop's finished, that ground just is bare for the rest of the year. To have the most healthy soil imaginable, really rich fertile soil, you need to have roots in that soil drawing in carbon and drawing in sugars to feed the bacteria all the time. Whether it be a cover crop or a cash crop, which is something you grow to sell, or whether it be just a crop to keep for yourself. So self-sufficiency isn't just about the money within, it's not just about feeding yourself, it's also about having enough money to fund the garden. So for instance, you could sell lettuces or salads to buy new varieties of seed, or to buy a polytunnel, or to buy different things, if you had to buy sacks of compost because you haven't got the facilities to make enough. So it's not just about, I've got to make everything on this site and everything's got to come from here. It's also about the money side of it, the economics. So I've started selling, or going to start selling, salad leaves over winter to fund next year's garden. So succession sowing is where you can sort of see now. So for instance, I got beetroot right behind the camera, and in about a month's time that beetroot will all be finished. So these trays here of radishes and Wheeler's Imperial cabbage and stuff like that will probably be used to fill those gaps. So I've not got any gaps in the garden. So that keeps the soil healthy and stops erosion. But say I forgot to sow all this and that beetroot gap became available, what I could do is direct sow something into it next month. So radishes or spring onions or something, anything. Or I could sow a cover crop of something, and that would build fertility over the winter, and then come spring I'd be hitting the ground running, and it would help as a weed suppressor for any weed seeds that were flying in. They'd land on the leaves and just blow into the path instead of landing on the beds, and etc. Another aspect of self-sufficiency, and this is a big one in my garden anyway, is intercropping. So for instance, instead of having a massive block of beetroot, or no, let's say cabbages, and instead of having a big block of cabbage or brassicas, the cabbage white butterfly could come along and just decimate in the night, because that's how they work. They're pretty fast little things. I'd rather put like half a block there, quarter there and a quarter there, and I'd have the same amount of cabbages, because for self-sufficiency you still want a reasonable quantity of vegetables being produced to feed yourself and your family. But if you intercrop, then what you're doing is you're breaking up the direct route between those crops that are susceptible to the same sorts of pests and disease, making it harder for the pest to get to each plant. So if you had one cabbage, if you only had like half a dozen cabbage plants, you could put one in each bed, and then you could intercrop that with other things and mix it up and do a bit of a polyculture. That way you'd be decreasing chances of pest pressure all around the place. Another example of this could be to stop larger mammals such as rabbits. I know they don't really like the smell of onions, and onions can be mildly toxic to rabbits, so they don't eat them. So if you've got rabbit problems, you could plant like a row of onions around your salads or something, and that would create a bit of a boundary. I'm not saying it works every time, but it could. I mean, it's worked for me slightly this year. That tomatoes, and well, tomatoes are another one as well that rabbits don't like, but onions especially, they don't like the smell. Anything in the allium family really. So I've put a little patch, and the rabbits didn't seem to bother that little corner because they didn't like the smell, whereas up at the top of the garden I'd just been cleared out from the rabbits. So another aspect of self-sufficiency would be you'd be after diversity in harvests to make meals from. So for instance, you know, you might want, you know, we're talking veg scale here now, because I'd love to have the room to have, you know, meat crops and milk and eggs, but you know, I can do the milk from the goats, but I haven't got room for chickens. So, you know, if you were talking on a veg scale now, you would have to buy in your dairy and your meat and any other little bits and bobs to go with your veg. But as far as the veg is concerned, you can be self-sufficient if you plant a lot of different things. So you've got to think like, you know, do I really like chili peppers? We don't eat many. You know, one plant would be enough for us. So there's no point me planting half of my tunnel with chilies if I don't like them. Same as like radishes. Wow, radishes grow really fast, yes. We don't eat that many, so there's no point me sowing a bed full, because they're going to go to waste. So I'd rather sow something like, you know, beetroot or carrots or potatoes that would, yes, they'll take longer to grow, and you know, that bed will be occupied for longer, but I will have a yield that I'll enjoy eating for maybe a longer period of time. So if you want to diversify, a diversity in your food has to start with a diversity in what you sow. So even if it means, you know, say you only like carrots and cucumbers, then you could sow 10 different types of carrot, 10 different types of cucumber, varieties wise. You know, you could do different coloured carrots or different shapes, sizes, Paris markets, Chantenays, early Nantes. Or on the cucumbers, you could go white wonder, crystal lemon, or crystal apple, some people call them. They've got two different names. Or you could go, you know, your greenhouse all female, or you could go your outside ridge, exploding cucumbers. You know, there's loads of different things, cucamelons, and you could just experiment with that. And then you'd have a diversity in what you fancy eating. So one salad, you might fancy a white cucumber, so you just go out and pick that white cucumber, cut it up, and you've got a bit of a difference. Whereas if you're always growing the same one variety, you're not got much of a diversity in what you're eating, and it gets boring. And the final aspect I'm just going to touch up on, not briefly, this is quite a big one for self-sufficiency, and it's one of my biggest goals this year, is seed saving. So I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different crops I'm saving seeds from in sight, and that's with the polytunnel door closed. So I'm saving seeds from peas, sugar snap peas, calendula, borage, radishes, leeks, all these different crops, and I'm picking one variety of each thing that's like open pollinated, so it could be cross pollinated. So leeks this year, Musselburgh, just a standard, bog standard variety, but I like the flowers, they look nice. So just for this year I'm saving seeds from a bog standard variety. Yes, I know, but I still need leek seeds, I'm short. So it makes sense to me to take up, a square like that big is all you need, and you can have leek seeds for 3 years. I put 8 leeks, size of a shoebox, that's it, good to go. Peas then, I've got a trellis of peas, I've had 2 crops off them, and now I'm saving the seeds off them, and they're drying out nicely. I've had peas here, in fact, 2 weeks ago, Meteor, and I've had over 700 pea seeds off them by weight. I've worked it out by weight, and that'll do me the next 3 years perhaps. So you just gotta watch, like with chard, you could sow a whole block of chard, and you'd think, oh, I've got enough chard for 20 years, but it won't keep that long. So you've got to think ahead of how long it keeps, and it might mean just doing the minimum. So with the leeks, for instance, we eat quite a few leeks, but not enough to justify doing beds and beds and beds of leeks. So I've done the minimum amount of leeks I need to get good pollination and a good gene pool to have strong viable seed. So that's 8. But I'll have a lot of seed that I can just sow heavily, thick seed sowing, and I can thin out so I can save the best seed that tastes the best, or whatever grows faster or yields better, or any different aspects you want. So if it's where leeks, the possibilities are endless. You could have winter hardiness or earliness. You could sow it in April and pick it in September. You could be aiming to have an earlier crop, so you could deliberately save seed from a variety. You can still have variety within a cultivar, so there is genetic differences. So for instance, you could, let's take the Musselburgh leek for instance. It's just a normal bog standard leek, run-of-the-mill leek. You could over time selectively breed that leek to be an earlier leek, so it has the same characteristics, just it is earlier cropping. So it tastes the same, looks the same, but it is earlier cropping. You could shift it slightly, so you could save seeds from any that, if they bulbed up by September, you could mark that one and save seeds from it the following year. And then the following year you save seeds from those seeds, whichever ones come earliest, and eventually you'll have whittled away and you will have slightly altered the gene pool, and you'll have selectively bred not a new variety as such, but it'll be an improved variety of that variety for your area. And that's another good thing about saving your own seed, is that the seed is more suited to your climate and your context. So for instance, my plants here are growing in about, the mulch is about 80% manure, 20% straw or chip, wherever the bedding of the animal was. So that means that these plants are growing in a very high organic matter concentration. So maybe a crop that was grown in a monoculture in a field somewhere wouldn't do as well in my garden because it'd be too fertile for it, and it wouldn't know what to do with all this extra fertility, because it would be relying on a water soluble solution to feed it. So then I can save seeds from plants that have done well with me this year or any year in this garden, in this context, and save seeds from them, and then I will get more vigorous seeds next year, so I can have better taste, better yields, anything like that. And as far as taste is concerned, you can get a little thing and it measures the bricks degrees or whatever you call it. I can't remember the name of the little device. And the more degrees bricks it is, the more flavorful it is, because there's more sugars in it. It's a direct correlation. So you could breed beetroot. So you're probably thinking, like, how do you breed beetroot for better taste when you'd be eating it and then you wouldn't be able to save seeds from it? Well, for tomatoes or something like that, you could try the flesh and go, yeah, that's nice, I'll put these seeds aside. Or for something like beetroot that flowers the following year, or carrots, you could bricks test it and go, yeah, that's really good, I need to save seeds from that. But also, you've got to take into account that bricks testing is, if your soil organic matter is high and your bacterial levels are high and you've got good fertile soil, then that is going to alter it compared to if you grew it in neat soil that's depleted of certain nutrients. Even if it was a genetically identical copy, so if you took a cutting and put it in two different environments, you'd have two different plants essentially, that you could save seeds from the better one in the fertile soil, and then those seeds would be used to fertile soil. So it's all that nature versus nurture sort of thing. But you can really play around with plants and like selectively breed, which is really cool and fascinating. But yeah, that's self-sufficiency. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye for now.